In this video, I'm going to reveal how much protein you should be eating in order to maximize muscle growth as a basketball player, what the best protein sources are to maximize muscle growth, and how you should spread your meals and time your protein throughout the day in order to ensure that you're really getting the most out of your protein and maximizing muscle growth as a hooper. Welcome back to another video here on the channel. Super excited for this one. This is like the 5th edition of the ultimate guide to weight gain for basketball. So super excited for this one. In part 1, we discussed how to set up your ideal meal schedule. Part 2, we discussed how to set up your ideal meal structure. In part 3, we discussed how to kind of get that initial data we need in order to guide our nutrition plan going forward. Part 4, we discussed actually how to calculate how many calories you should be eating. And now we're in a place to figure out, okay, how much protein should you be eating to maximize muscle growth? So when it comes to building muscle, protein's super important because it actually stimulates the process. So a process called muscle protein synthesis, branched chain amino acids, specifically leucine, triggers that process and gets the machinery of muscle growth going for you. And protein is made up of amino acids, which are building blocks that your muscles actually use to build muscle. So super important stuff. And not only that, protein is also important for a number of other things like muscle recovery, immune system function, tendon and ligament health, and a number of other different functions in the body. There's proteins in or on pretty much every cell in the body, so super important stuff here. Now, as far as where you're gonna get your protein, the easiest places to get protein from your diet is gonna be meat, poultry, fish, dairy, animal sources of protein. They tend to be the most bioavailable, so that means your body can actually use them very effectively, and the most efficient sources of protein. So for example, I've seen a bunch of people say peanut butter is a really good source of protein, but for every 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, you get like 16 grams of fat and 6 grams of protein. Whereas with 4 ounces of chicken breast, you're getting 22 grams of protein, very little fat. So a super efficient source of protein. That's not to say you can't get protein from plant-based sources, but typically when it comes to bioavailability, their ability to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, animal-based sources of protein tend to be the best. And I'll link a grocery list down below with both animal and plant-based options. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you want some more direction as far as protein sources. And a little bit more on the plant versus animal-based protein side of things. Like I said, animal-based proteins tend to be the most efficient, most bioavailable, and they have the best amino acid profile. So they have all 9 essential amino acids, whereas plant-based proteins, except for a few, tend to be missing a lot of the essential amino acids and tend to have an incomplete essential amino acid profiles. Whereas you get all 9 essential amino acids for something like beef, chicken, fish, dairy. Something like beans or whole grains, like I said, peanut butter, is gonna be a little bit more difficult because it's not gonna have that essential amino acid profile that's gonna maximize muscle growth. And that's not to say that you can't be plant-based or you can't include plant-based proteins in your diet. Plant-based proteins tend to be a really good addition to your diet. I just recommend that you get a combination of animal-based and plant-based protein because then you're gonna get the essential amino acid profile and the other micronutrients that you're gonna get mostly in animal-based sources. And you get some other antioxidants and stuff like that from plant-based sources. There's nothing wrong with having plant-based proteins. Just if you're looking to maximize muscle growth, animal-based proteins tend to be most efficient at doing that. And if you're gonna go full plant-based, you're gonna want to increase your protein intake by about 20%, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Now, as far as protein needs to maximize muscle growth, the key is to eat enough, but you don't really need to eat a ton. I see a lot of people go way overboard. There's usually 2 camps here, one that way under eats protein and one that way overdoes it because they hear, oh, protein's good for muscle growth, so I'm gonna go and eat 400 grams of protein per day. If you're eating 400 grams of protein per day, you're either a psychopath or you're just super uncomfortable throughout the day. And the thing is, it's not really necessary. Really, in order to maximize muscle protein synthesis, the amount that's been shown to do that is about 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, that's about 160 grams. So again, it's not a small amount, but it's not some crazy large, unfathomable amount of protein. And I typically recommend somewhere between that 0.8 grams per pound to 1 gram per pound range. I actually typically recommend 1 gram per pound just to keep it simple, easy to remember. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you're gonna need 200 grams of protein. You weigh 150, you eat 150 grams of protein. Super simple, super easy to remember, it gets the job done, and it's pretty easy to stick to as well. And if you go above that recommendation, you're not necessarily hurting yourself. Like, it's not bad for your kidneys. You're not gonna hurt your overall health. But in terms of athletic performance and maximizing muscle gain as well, it's not really a good look because if you're eating a ton of protein and getting your calories a lot from protein, you're taking away from calories that could come from other macronutrients that have very important functions as well. As we'll discuss later in the series, carbohydrates are your main source of fuel for high intensity training, which is necessary to build muscle. Fat's gonna help hormone production and testosterone production, which is important to build muscle. So you don't wanna eat so much protein that it's taking away from the other macronutrients, but you do wanna eat enough to stimulate the muscle growth process and make sure you're doing everything you need to do there. If you're a plant-based eater for ethical reasons or religious reasons, nothing wrong with that, totally respect your decision. You'll just want to make sure you increase your total daily protein intake by about 20% to make up for that reduced bioavailability and the less than favorable essential amino acid profile. Again, it's doable to go plant-based, it just makes things a little bit more difficult. So if you have the ability to get your protein from animal-based sources, I just recommend getting animal-based proteins in just to make it easier for you. And lastly, can you use protein powder? You totally can. I actually made a whole video about this, so I'll link that in the description below as well. Protein powder is totally fine to help you hit that protein goal. You just don't want to get all your protein from protein powder because there's plenty of other nutrients and important compounds in whole food sources that are going to help support recovery and just overall health. So you want to make sure you're getting plenty of whole food protein sources, but in order to get you over that last little bump and hit your protein target, because 200 grams per day is not a crazy amount, but it can be a little difficult. So protein powder can help you hit that. All right, so that's protein intake, and in the next video, we're gonna discuss how to assess your progress, make sure you're actually progressing in the right direction, make sure the nutrition plan is working, and how to adjust and troubleshoot anything if things aren't going the way you'd like them to go. So be sure to drop a like, subscribe so you don't miss part 6, and I'll see you in the next video.